I like how this particular architects who actually talk about architectures, he say that basically we are the problem solver. We are here to solve the problems. So when the clients or anyone that throw us a problem, say for example, the site has no market values and things like that, and then it is they would like to attract a different types of people to the site and so on and so forth. So those becomes a problem, and we are there supposed to look into the problems and see that how can we actually find the head or the source of the problems and thinking of solutions in order to tackle it. So this is the one that I think that he actually speaks the best to explain what architectures or designer is about. So are we the same as engineers, especially when we are talking about civil engineers? Okay, so definitely engineers and architectures, we are of two very different fields, but at the same time, we are assisting each other very closely at work when we are in the built environments. So engineering, they deal with the physics of the architectures, when the architectures encompass the holistic experience of the user, including that, say for example, your senses, how you are going to be greeted into the building, how are you going to use the space and things like that. So if we are saying that engineer is dealing with the tangible side of the building, we are more looking into nothingness of the buildings. So because we are more concerned on the space, the emptiness within that is encompassed within the building, and then we are only using the tangible materials or elements to manipulate the space that has nothing in there but air. So I'm not sure whether you will be able to understand me here. Is that, for example, that can you imagine that you have a KLCC that you cannot walk in? Can you imagine that you actually go into like Sydney Opera House and then you cannot enter the Sydney Opera House to feel the space, to hear, to enjoy the acoustics, of it? And all of this is it's not actually the walls that you touch, but it's actually the space that you experience. So if I actually pass the same thing, say an apartment or an office or a hotel or shopping mall or a hospitals to an engineers will be looking into how many floors are there, how many people will be there, what is the load it is going to be placed on the buildings. Is it that you would like it to be constructed using steels or masonries or things like that? So engineers, they will think from that perspective. So if you're only thinking from that perspective, there is a likelihood that your apartment, your office, your hotel, your shopping mall, or your hospitals are all going to look alike, because if that physical requirements is the same, then they could actually look alike under the eyes of an engineer. But if you are looking into an architect thinks, take a look at a project in a very different way. Say, for example, when you're looking into an apartment, then you are looking into the units of a family. Then you're looking into how that you would like to live within that. Do you want it to have more shared spaces so then you have more interactions? Do you want it to have morning, now that we want to work from home, then how are you going to facilitate that? When you're looking into office, then you're looking into whether this company has a very rigid hierarchy kind of systems where the bosses must be sitting in a much bigger room at a much more prestigious locations and things like that. Or perhaps it is a cultures like Google Office where there is no bosses, there is no one to report to, so it's going to be a free plans and things like that. Or the hotels or the shopping malls, do you want people to, like now if you go to every shopping mall, all the brands are the same. You will have Gucci, you will have Parsons or things like that. So when the goods are the same, then how are you going to attract people to more B and not more A? So that depends again on the experience of shopping, on the experience of how that you would like to enjoy the place. How would you like to go around the places? So then there will be hospitals, something that is very sterilized, white walls and things like that. Can you make it warm? So these are the things that I think that is why that even though that when we are looking almost the same physical requirements, we will always come up with very different solutions. Okay? So if we ask an engineer or an architect for a building, so the questions of an engineers will be how big, how tall, how heavy, construction method, do you have skilled laborers, is this site accessible by the truck and things like that, and then what is your budget? But then the architects or the designers will ask more that who are user, how they want to use it, how long they want to occupy it, how do they go around their daily life within this building, and so on and so forth. So this is something that to do a lot with the people and not so much on just the physical elements of a building. So like for examples, when we are looking at designers, so I want to just take one small example because it will be easier for us to relate. When you look at the left-hand side, that is actually a fan, okay? But then if you look at this, they are using the similar, design of like a fan. But then when you pull this string, it is not winds that comes out, but then it is music that's going to come out. It's actually a CD player that's designed by Muji. So basically, the moment that you look at this and you start playing the music, the first phrase that comes to your mind would be like, the music basically breeze through and then coming to you. So music is like a breeze that blowing to you and then being heard by your ears. So that is the things, a poetic things about design, that with just the designs perhaps of the outlook here, you are trying to plant an idea in the user and give them a very different meanings, to whatever that they have enjoyed daily. If you press on just a cassette players or a radios, just pressing a buttons, you might still be able to hear the music, but then you will not be able to paint the pictures of the music that is like a breeze that coming to you. So I think that is the main differences and the most difficult part of a designers to achieve. So when we are talking about designers in general, okay, you will be always the one that is always curious. Okay, so if you are the type of persons that you sit there and then all that you would like to know about one question is, do you have a standard answer? Then you might not be suitable to study architectures or interior designers or any other creative field, because you need to be able to always being curious and asking, hey, what's next? What's more? Okay, you will never be satisfied with a standard answer. You're always looking at alternative. You like to think out of the norm. You like to have perhaps a little bit of humorous moment in your life. You might want to be a little bit more poetic about it. And then definitely you need to be a very warm person, because everything that you do deal with a people, deal with a person that has souls, that has feelings and everything. So when we are looking into this, so that what means that designers, since that we are looking at designers, we're not looking only at a practical use of it. So you are always looking into a human-centered design. So human over here, that means that is basically the core values of a designer's profession. So this is how that we feel that designers and human-centered things, and that's why we also feel that in terms of educations, these designs also need to evolve around humans. So that is why that if you are studying with us in these architectures or interiors, okay, so you will be required to go out to work with the public, work with the native peoples, trying to learn how to listen, how did you try to communicate at the levels, how are you going to be able to give a solutions to them? Because we think that this is actually the most important part of education that we are creating here. Because most of the things you can download from the Googles, you can actually learn on your own. But I feel that this is the part that you will need some guidance to bring it into you, so then you will be able to see the problems, you will be able to learn all these soft skills before you step out into the communities. So these are all some of the projects that we are doing, and this is actually a live project. I think now it's on the drafting board, and our students join as an internship there, just drafting out the final project. So this is a church, okay, in Nilai. So they have live competitions with our students, okay. So this is the story museums in Sungai Buloh. You can see that these are actually our students who are working, to build up the exhibitions board and things like that. And this is actually some of the proposals that I have made. And then this is actually done together with our industrial partners. So these are also some of the hands-on things that you have to do. So if you are coming to studies about, architectures or interiors architectures here, you have to expect yourself to get your hands dirty. You have to expect yourself to go down and then start talking to people and then start trying out how to communicate with them. It's not about how beautiful your rendering is. It's not about how flowery your speech is about. It's just about how that you bring yourself to the user levels and talk to them. So over here, this is when that you will need to practice. So year one that you will have to do a lot of practicing to build here, the benches and things like that. So this is actually a project in JB. This is what kind of like an ongoing project, the remarkets that we are still really looking into our old markets and see how that we can give it a new life with a different interpretations of markets. This is also an ongoing project that we are doing for the new village, looking into how we can perhaps develop a certain prototypes to revive the Kampung Baru. Okay, so I think for us to become a designer, basically you will need to be able to see what people has not seen yet. This is very much like how Apple starts to take over the markets. Before everybody is looking into the possibilities of touchscreen, they are the first one who say that no, I do not want so many buttons. I only want one button, and you will have to figure it out. So I think that is the abilities that needs to be trained up. You need to be able to be broad enough to think out of the box. So what I see is that if you are looking into a designer's educations, let's put our focus a little bit differently, because for me, a lot of knowledge can be learned through online or through downloadings and things like that. But I think most importantly for us here is how that we can train you to be very different persons, having a very different perspective. So for me, if you ask me what can you do after this education, if you manage to learn the problem solving skills and to learn to have a new perspective, you can be anything that you want to be. Not all my graduates ended up becoming an architect, but I think they have bring along to them some skills that they have learned from here, and then they bring out to another different levels and another different field. So this is how I feel, is that it's all about commitment, how committed you are. Because if you are not committed to your work, there's always an easy way out. That is what people say, about creativity. So when you're talking about, say, a poster that you design, it can be an easy way out for you to just place 4 or 5 images, throw it into the PowerPoint, and let the PowerPoint or whatever it is to give you a suggestions, and then you just accept it and done with it. but then there is also about how much that you would like to achieve. What do you wanted in your life? That's how much effort that you wanted to put in to make it happen.